So episode 8, it's been a tough season for Elizabeth in general, but this was a really tough episode. First, Margaret's kind of calling her out for not being cultured and not reading. Then Philip's flirting with Jacqueline Kennedy, and then she really thinks she's hitting it off with her. But then she finds out she said all these horrible things about her behind her back, calling her majestic dullness. And it's so interesting how Elizabeth's very personal jealousy of Jacqueline leads to her taking actions going to Ghana that have such global repercussions. And by the way, I always love seeing Elizabeth get all dressed up and go to these fancy dinners. I always get the sense that Elizabeth fundamentally enjoys being queen and really does love it. As much as this whole season seems to be driving home the point that being queen, not always all it's cracked up to be. And then we get to episode 9, by far the best episode of the season for me, maybe one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen, and I'm not exaggerating. So back in episode 2, we got a little taste of Philip's maybe less than happy childhood with the crazy mom, the Nazi sister, and the father who's maybe abandoned him. And now we see it fleshed out and actually seeing what this actually looked like for Philip. It's absolutely horrifying. And we see this brutal scene of his dad blaming him for the crash that led to the death of his sister and all these other people. And afterwards, someone comes up to him and says something that seems a little strange. He says to Philip, look, I know you're mad at your dad, but understand that one day you'll grow up, you'll become a parent, and know what it's like to fail as a father, as all fathers do, and have to beg for the forgiveness of your son. And these words turn out to be so prophetic because you see how Philip, in trying to create a better childhood for his son and trying to be a different person than his father was to him, ends up ironically creating a trauma that's different but probably just as traumatic for his son. And early in the episode, there's the throwaway line Philip says, oh, I built that gate over there. And then later in the episode, we actually see what that means and that Philip built that entire gate with his bare hands as catharsis for this horrible grief he felt. And then when Philip as a boy finally says, I need help, and he says it quietly in front of all these people, it's just so powerful because those words, for someone who's narcissistic, those are the hardest words in the world to say, and yet they're the foundation of all families, teams, countries, and everything great. And what this episode pulls off is it shows Philip doing the indefensible almost all season with the borderline cheating and the bullying of his son, so many things that you just think are so unforgivable, so indefensible, and then it doesn't excuse what he does, but it really delves into just what causes this behavior and really humanizes him. And then again, this dynamic of him going through this horrible trauma in his childhood and yet being so adamant that his son go through that exact same trauma. It's so bizarre and perverse, but so realistic and relatable. And then we get to episode 10. Harold, you just feel so bad for him. His wife cheating on him and then going with her lover to watch these shows where everybody's mocking him, making fun of him. And then he makes this horrible decision of actually going to one of these shows. And the actor spots him and starts making fun of him right to his face in front of everyone. Just this public humiliation. In a season where you feel for, I don't know who comes out of the season looking good. You feel bad for Margaret, you feel bad for Elizabeth, you feel bad for Philip, you feel definitely bad for Philip's son. Now it's Harold. I don't know who I feel the worst for. And this episode really drove home just how empty and alone Elizabeth must feel. She definitely can't trust Philip. Everyone around her, her own prime minister, seems to have lost the appetite, as they say, to fight the good fight and go on. She just seems completely alone. And it just seems like Elizabeth's greatest strength as queen, it's not her being this dynamic, forceful personality or being really knowledgeable about world affairs. What her biggest strength as queen has seemed to be her ability to tolerate and endure and just soldier on when everyone around her has quit. And then Philip's speech to her about sometimes the people that look the most messy and unreliable, they're actually the ones that when push comes to shove, you can really rely and depend on. It's just made all the more powerful by the last episode that we just saw that just really delved into his history and just how messy and horrible his childhood and his life in general really has been. And in the end, it is a really messy, bleak, grim finale, but I really think that's what the show is going for. So all in all, looking back at the season, it really is a fantastic show. And I guess I'm disappointed we're not going to get more episodes about this period of history because I know Claire Foy, she's going to leave the show and it's going to move forward in history a little bit. But I can't say anything bad about the episodes that we did get. So I guess I shouldn't be greedy, and I am looking forward to future seasons.